everyone, and welcome to Tonight at the Obscura, the Discworld Quickstart. How are we all? Hope we're doing well. How's the volume on the music? Do I need to drop it a bit? I think I need to drop it a bit. Howdy, howdy, howdy. How you doing, Ashra? Maybe a tad? Yeah, that's fine. I had to do a clean install of OBS over the weekend, so all my volume settings and stuff are all over the place. Playing Dawnsbury Days. I need... see, I have the demo they did, Quest for the Golden Candelabra, but I don't actually have Dawnsbury Days yet. And I really need to give it a try again. Swing Ripper swears by it. But I'm kind of interested to know how... not close to the source material, because that'd be wrong. Like, how contentful is it? It has a full story now, it seems, plus workshop support. See, workshop support's interesting. A recent mod added a roguelike type side story to it. Oh god, okay. Do I have to add Dawnsbury Days to my list of games to play on stream? Is that what we're getting at? Because I've seen people do speedruns of it. And it's just like, no, that's not for me. Highly suggest it. Well, actually, Ash, why haven't you done Dawnsbury Days on stream? Actually, even those don't... we're pretty quiet at the moment. What do you mean you don't have a good reason? You're a Pathfinder 2 content creator. Boo. We'll do it this way. Yeah. And besides, you don't really need a good reason. We're in Swind 1 with 1 vote. God. That's about right, isn't it? What do you mean, Luigi? A Wahoonie? Did you misspell wisdom? I mean, I could do more. I mean, it's fine for me. Chemo, Thurgist. Yeah, if anyone is like into... oh, you can hear a point for that. Oh, wait for it. Hey, so I know a lot of people have a tendency to watch the VODs for this on YouTube and stuff like this, and I'm just gonna super embarrass Ashra for a second and say that they did up their own class for Pathfinder 2nd edition called the Hemothergist. It's kind of like a blood caster that sacrifices their hit points to do all sorts of weird magical stuff. So if that's the kind of thing you're into, you can pick it up from there at that link right there. And even better news, I know Asher is planning a remaster version in the near future. So if casting using blood magic is your kind of thing, look at it. Also, I have it on good opinion that there is someone working on an updated version of the Foundry module for it as well. So it's a great time to look into it. Any purchase I get this week, I blame you. Okay. Don't fret me with good time, jeez. But also, Asher is super cool. They recently just finished a playthrough of Safe Haven, a Wild West AP for Pathfinder 2nd edition by Team Plus, not Team Plus, but Derry from Team Plus. And it was really fun. I didn't get to watch every session, but the ones I lurked at were a lot of fun. And they're going to be doing another AP in the future as soon as that's all finished, sorted, and done. But I think I've done enough advertising and plugging for Asher at this point. So, a couple of things before we get started. I did have, like I said earlier, I had to do a clean install of OBS over the weekend, so there have been changes to the overlay. So I do apologize about that. Also, I forgot to run a commercial beforehand, so I apologize if you're getting the pre-rolls. That said, at the hour points, we are going to be taking a quick 3 to 5 minute break so I can run the Twitch ads and kind of keep them away. It's probably one of my best things I've both streamed and played, one of my best production-wise, without a doubt. You'd put a lot of effort into it, Ash. Absolutely. Hello, Martha Maxwell. How are you? Though that does remind me, I do have new emotes, stream emotes on the way. Mater can attest to their quality. We're getting a drowning emote because there's something of a trend of people in chat trying to drown me for some reason. We're also getting a crit emote and another fun one that I'm going to leave as a surprise for everyone later because I've already had a look at it and it's really good. I'm so looking forward to it. Otherwise, if you want to support the stream and everything we're doing here, I do have a throne. Currently, I have a throne goal up there for Monster Hunter Wilds, because a few people want to see me play it on stream, but I can't really afford it at the moment because AAA titles being what they are. So I've got that up on the throne at the moment. I've also got a couple of other things for stream assets and stuff like that, because also good things to have, and I just want to see the stream improve. So if you got any extra money kicking around and you kind of want to support what we're doing here, that is probably the best way to do it at the moment. All that said, tonight we are going to be covering the Discworld Quickstart. Now, I didn't know the Quickstart was out yet. We found this out last fortnight when we were doing the Fallout Quickstart, which is also from Mephidius, and I was looking up all the stuff you could get for Fallout up on DriveThruRPG, and this cropped up. And I was like, holy shit, the Quickstart's out already? Oh man. But no, it was on Kickstarter last year. It shattered its goals, of course it did, because everything shatters their goals on Kickstarter at the moment. But I'm kind of interested in it, because we talk about how we have formative writing or formative books that we read, like things that shaped our entire worldview. For me, it was Discworld. There were other things that I got growing up that also shaped me a little bit, but I don't think anything shaped me quite as much as Discworld. I watched the cartoons from the early 90s, Soul Music and Weird Sisters, absolutely love them. They were one of the few things I really scrambled to get home to watch, especially from school and stuff like that. It was the only thing I would watch instead of Pokemon. But I think it was for my 10th or 11th birthday, I got the Soul Music and Weird Sisters books, and I read them to death. Like my copy of Soul Music from when I was a kid, I still have it. It's like dog-eared and half the cover is missing. It's a mess, but I still got the birthday message from my parents in there. But yeah, it kind of shifted and warped how I see a lot of the things in the world. So that might explain a lot of the things about me. All that said, we are going to go for the Quickstart tonight. I don't know a lot about it. I've kind of absorbed a couple of things by osmosis. I know it's a lot more narrative focused than Fallout, for instance, but that's kind of expected because the Discworld series has never really been about combat. So I'm kind of interested to see how the mechanics for it go and how they do resolutions and things like that. Because from the looks of things, they're also not... It's also very narrative driven. But let's get into it. Also, Paul Kidby, who has been doing the art forever, I think he's been doing the art since the very beginning. Has done like the cover art and some of the internal art for the book as well, and it's just absolutely gorgeous. Like, that's a foam background right there. But Terry Pratchett's Discworld Adventures in Ankh-Morpork. Contents. Introduction, what is Discworld? Ankh-Morpork. Tone, what is a role-playing game? Okay, we're gonna get the role-playing game talk, that's fine. Of dices and GMs? Oh, they're hyperlinked. Wait, are they proper hyperlinked? They're proper hyperlinked. Okay, so I've been looking over a lot of different Quickstart guides over the last little while, trying to figure out, you know, what I want to do with these streams in particular. And the amount of times that the bookmark side for the PDF is just empty. But whoa, this is perfect. Oh, thank you for clearing that up for me, Mata. Kirby did all the gold greebly looking art. Oh yeah, he's the reason that everyone thinks Two Flower has 4 eyes. Because that was in the art direction for the front cover, yeah. Alright. So, by the looks of things, half of this is going to be gameplay, the other half is going to be the adventure itself. I already have an idea with what I want to run for an adventure, so we probably will actually go through it, because I want to see how it mechanically works within the storyline, even if we're just doing a read-through of it. But, see, look at that. Look how good that does. Look, Grade 2's looking great. Introduction. What is Discworld? In a distant and second-hand set of dimensions, in an astral plane that was never meant to fly, the curling star mists waver and part. See, Greater Tuin the turtle comes, swimming slowly through the interstellar gulf, hydrogen frost on his ponderous limbs, his huge and ancient shell pocked with meteor craters. Through sea-sized eyes that are crusted with rheum and asteroid dust, he stares fixedly at the destination. In a brain bigger than a city with geological slowness, he thinks only of the weight. Most of the weight is of course accounted for by Berillia, Tubal, Great Typhon, and Jerakeen, the 4 giant elephants upon whose broad and star-tanned shoulders the disk of the world rests, garlanded by the long waterfall at its vast circumference and domed by the baby blue vault of heaven. Just give me a second, yeah. I am smiling so wide right now. Discworld is the setting for the novels penned or at least typed by Sir Terry Pratchett. These novels are present on nearly every fantasy reader's shelf and many a charity shop one as well. It is a world built on stories with fuzzy geography and unreliable chronology. It's a place where characters try to live their day-to-day lives but are forever interrupted by the needs of a narrative. A place where dwarfs look askance at trolls, vampires look askance at werewolves, and the citizens of Ankh-Morpork mostly just want to get through one single day without being looked askance at. Discworld is a setting where the gods play games with the lives of men on a board which is at one and the same time a simple playing area and the whole world. To quote Interesting Times. While you may not be gods, Adventures in Ankh-Morpork certainly allows you to play games with the lives of humans, dwarves, trolls, gargoyles, igors, zombies, and a whole plethora of other weird and wonderful creatures that call the disc home. Well, maybe not the whole disc, but certainly that stinking part of it that slumps on the stove plains known as Ankh-Morpork. Discworld is a setting that is a special place in many hearts and imaginations all over Roundworld. It is our unbelievable privilege to bring that world to life on tabletops, both physical and virtual, for fans old and new. We hope we've done it justice. I like that they've already kind of acknowledged the internal humor of the whole thing. And just this initial mention, it's so good. Ankh-Morpork. Ankh-Morpork, rolling city of 100,000 souls, and as the partition privately observed, 10 times that number of actual people. Squatting on the dark loam of the Stowe Plains, surrounded by cabbage fields as far as the eye can see, and bisected by the River Ankh, which can only be called a river because it moves slightly faster than the surrounding land, this ancient city has stood for thousands of years. Built and rebuilt upon itself, it has weathered invasions, by letting the invaders in, making them its own, and robbing them blind in the process, several civil wars, and too many fires to count. Owing to the time-honored Morporkian tradition of burning out of tinder, dry wood, and thatch waterproofed with pitch, the city thrives under the careful ministrations of the partition, Lord Vetinari. One of the most enlightened moves was encouraging the Thieves Guild to come out of the shadows and into the public eye, taking their place at civic banquets and in the smooth running of the city, with the reasoning that if you were going to have crime, it might as well be organized crime. And the city does run. It shouldn't, but it does. Vetinari has managed to convince the guilds that he is slightly preferable to any other option. Since his inauguration as Partition, the city has seen many changes, including the resurgence of the Watch. Having at one point dwindled into a handful of unemployables no one in their right mind would take seriously, it is now an efficient policing force led by Commander Sir Samuel Vimes. This thin brown smear stands between the fine and upstanding citizens of Ankh-Morpork and themselves, and any unlicensed thieves, of course. Oh, they got footnotes as well. Perfect. In fact, the best and unlicensed thief can hope for is to be caught by the Watch. Those caught by the Thieves Guild tend to experience an extremely pointed or very blunt version of justice, depending on whatever the guild has at hand at the time. The Watch keeps the peace, although very few know where, and now the guilds spend slightly more time plotting against each other than they do against the partition. Now, everything works. Mostly. Look how happy he is. He's just so happy. Swamp dragons, everyone. Swamp dragons. But when is now? Ankh-Morpork has a long and sordid history in which they have been infinite nows. But we're not concerned with those old nows. We care about this present now. Now is the turn of the century of the anchovy. The century of the fruit bat saw many societal and technological leaps forward, or at least sideways, for the people of Ankh-Morpork. They were landed on by dragons and saw multiple assassination attempts of important figures, not least of which were the partition and Sir Samuel Vimes. This year, we look forward to the looming anniversary of Coombe Valley, the only battle in history where both sides ambushed the other. One of the many reasons for the ancient grudge between dwarfs and trolls. Ankh-Morpork has grown from a place near permanently on fire to a thriving metropolis inhabited by species of all different and wonderful shapes and sizes. Which is now only sometimes on fire. For those familiar with the Discworld novels, this particular now sits somewhere around the events of Going Postal and Thud. Coombe Valley looms ahead like an iceberg, and the Grand Trunk Semaphore Company grinds the clacks into the ground in the name of profit, and a certain conman, named by doting if unwise parents, plies his trade with no thoughts of angels. This is the now of Adventures in Ankh-Morpork. Okay, so we have a particular timeline. Now, because this is a tabletop role-playing game, of course you can fuck with the timeline and you can set your whatever stories you're playing in, but they are putting forward the assumption of this is the time frame. So around the events of Going Postal and Thud, So the Coombe Valley Accord hasn't been done yet. And okay, so Moist von Lipwig is still doing con artistry around the city. For me personally, I'd probably set the idea I have for my adventure is to be set afterwards. Like even after making money or even raising steam, just because having access to the train system I think would be great. But I digress. Tone. Our aim with this game is to bring that core, indefinable Discworldiness to your tabletop. The focus here isn't on delving into dungeons or fighting dragons. Honestly, yes, add new adventures at the end of all things, right? Even post the Hatful of Sky, as sad as that's going to be for me to read. Delving into dungeons or fighting dragons. Swamp dragons are rather too small to offer much of a fight for a start. Combine this with your inclination to explode if startled, and you've got a recipe for some very disappointed and slightly singed adventurers milling around sheepishly, picking bits of dragon out of their hair. Oh, it's fine. It would have hit me like a hammer either way. Nor will you be moving 30 feet and dealing 12 damage to a monster. There are no rules for combat. Okay, so straight up. While violence and conflict are commonplace in Ankh-Morpork, combat is never the point of the story. The focus is on the characters, the world, and the words. People are defined by traits, not numbers. The world and the players vie to control the story as narrativium sluices finally through everything, gently pushing things towards a satisfying conclusion. Hey Karaga, how you doing? Finally, we encourage players to bend the English language far beyond what is usually considered reasonable. Terry Pratchett used words in ways that were unexpected and combinations and meanings that were playful, joyful, and often unreasonable. We heartily encourage you to do the same. The more awful the puns, the better. Or should I say, the more punishing the puns, the better. Safety tools. A plethora of safety tools are available for budding RPG players. For those unaware or uninitiated, safety tools are tools to keep you safe at the table. A less fastidious explanation is that these are ways in which everyone at the table can ensure that everyone else is having a good time. No person, player or GM, should ever feel uncomfortable or upset at the table. Characters can get uncomfortable and upset, but the people around the table should be enjoying the story, not wishing they could be somewhere else. To this end, there are many more resources that we can cover here. One main method is to discuss potentially upsetting topics before the game begins, and outline whether each player is okay with them being on screen, off screen, or not included at all. This is known as Lines and Veils, Ron Edwards. And more information can be found online. Another is the X-Card system from John Stavropoulos, which involves giving each player a card or other item to hold up when the game is straying into uncomfortable territory. If a player holds up an X card, the GM moves on from the scene without need for further discussion. Many other safety tools can be found online. The main thing to remember is talk to each other. Have a discussion before play to make sure everyone is on the same page, and if anything becomes uncomfortable, stop the game. No explanation is necessary in the moment, just ask for a break or for a rewind or however your group has chosen to handle sensitive topics. You're all people and should treat each other's boundaries with respect. Remember that these tools are there to ensure everyone is enjoying themselves. See, I like that. Because I've been reading so many quick starts lately, I've seen many different ways of addressing safety tools, but they all do it. And some of them kind of waver from the very brief to more in depth like this. You're not a human? Well, everyone's welcome in Ankh-Morpork. Now, what is a role-playing game? Before we get into the rules themselves, it's worth taking a step back and asking, what is a role-playing game? As the name suggests, it's a game where you play a role. Each player takes on the role of a character within the world, in this case within Discworld, and via that character tells a story with their friends. Most role-playing games, including this one, have two types of person at the table. Most people are players, and one is the game master. Players take on the role of characters, inventively named player characters or PCs. The game master, the GM, takes on the role of the world. They play the part of every other character in the game. All the non-player characters, NPCs, that the PCs talk to, walk past, interact with, and ignore, as well as the world itself. They are the narrator of the PC's actions and the world's reactions. The one who decides what happens next. The dangler of plot hooks. The doer of silly voices. The twister of the narrative and the conduit through which the story unfolds. It's important to note that while the GM may have a better idea of what is happening than the players, RPGs are collaborative storytelling experiences. Everyone influences and directs the story through their characters' actions. The GM listens to the players, hones in on which aspects of the world and story they are enjoying, and gives them more of that. But it's not their story alone. The core of an RPG is telling a story around a table, be it physical or digital, with your friends. So gather a group of like-minded people and enjoy the ridiculous and often emotional ride that is a great game. See, that's a good introduction as well. And once again, I like the fact that they put front and center that this is going to be like a narrative-focused game. It sets the standard pretty well. Of dice and GMs, the GM is the person at the table that supposedly knows more about what's going on than anyone else. This is rarely true. They are the one with a better idea of where the story could be headed. The story could be headed where they think, but no plan survives contact with the players. Players will constantly twist and change a narrative until it is unrecognizable from its original form. And the GM has to do some quite severe mental acrobatics to figure out how they got from point A to point 3.2 to Venezuela. Something the GM does have more control over, to a point, is the tone. This is something to be discussed with your players before your game. Some groups will want to embrace the silly and outlandish aspects of Discworld. Others may want to dive into the political intrigue surrounding the governance of Ankh-Morpork. And yet more may want something that's made to showcase the world they know and love. Bear in mind that Discworld is a satirical setting, not a comedy one. Outside of the Fool's Guild, there are very few characters that are intentionally trying to be funny. And inside the Fool's Guild, there are very few characters that succeed at being funny. The funniest moments in Discworld novels come from excellent wordplay, and characters taking the events around them seriously no matter how ridiculous things are on the face of it. Speaking of, have some death on motorcycle. Venezuela mentioned. Well, it rolls off the tongue really well. It's a pretty word. Wow, that is probably a great description of satire versus comedy I've read. It's really good. Like, as someone who's a long-term fan of Discworld, they really seem to be nailing it really well. For a little bit of extra context, my first experience with role-playing games, particularly running them, was running a game of GURPS Discworld. And I used to have the book somewhere. I still might have it. I don't think I do, though. I think it was lost in one of the moves. But this feels like it's narrowing nailing the feel of it a lot better. Fool's Guild trying to be funny when? When has that happened? Well, they have the list of approved jokes, don't they? What is the system? Iron contains not just iron, but also the story of iron, the history of iron, the part of iron that ensures it will continue to be iron, and has an iron-like job to do and is not, for example, cheese. Without narrativium, the cosmos has no story, no purpose, no destination. The Science of Discworld 3. Discworld is a unique setting and it deserves a bespoke system to do it justice. A system that encourages those random silly moments that RPGs and the Discworld novels both embrace so well. A system that allows for flexibility and actively encourages puns, awful and amazing alike. In short, a system that makes you feel like you are in Discworld. That is what we have created. Hopefully, at least. We'd hate to have to put Andy back in the scorpion pit, although it does seem to focus his mind beautifully. Well, kudos to you, Andy. You've done well so far. Our system is built on two core premises. The disc has a story it wants to tell, and left alone will spin on much as it has always done. 2. The players want to change the story to one more to their liking. Discworld itself operates like a story, and top research wizards have found that it is helped along by an element found in abundance on Discworld: narrativium. It is this narrativium that the players are going to have to contend with if they want to forge their own story in a world frankly bursting at the seams with stories. Players will use their character and their dice to see if they have what it takes to beat the narrativium into the shape they want. They need to be careful, however, sometimes it beats back. Oh, okay, so is narrativium going to be like the meta currency? Well, that's definitely a picture. I'd be a little disappointed too if I had wheels. Yeah, the god of evolution. What do you need? There are a few things that you'll need in order to play a game of adventures in Ankh-Morpork. You should have more of them lying around, although the more specialized items, such as polyhedral dice, friends, and time, may require a little more work to acquire. Pen and paper. Somewhere to take notes and something to take them with. A pen and paper are traditional, but this is the century of the anchovy, so go digital if you like. Whatever your preferred medium, taking notes will be useful for everyone to keep track of what's going on. Who said what? And that one NPC with the silly name that the party adopted, so now the GM has to keep doing that voice for the rest of the adventure. I hate how real that is. Dice! A set of polyhedral dice, a D4, D6, D8, D10, D12, D20, and D100 for failing attempting tests. Each shorthand given refers to the number of sides the die has. So D4 means a 4-sided die, a D20 means a 20-sided die, and we're fairly sure you can figure out the rest from there. Although the D100 has to be contrary and break this mold. It is in fact 2 D10s rolled together, one to give you the 10s and the other to give you the 1s. The D20 and D100 will only be needed for rolling on tables, however, not used in general play. As a result, we won't need them in this book. Dice inject an element of randomness into your story. Things will not always go your character's way. The narrativium, in the bones of the disc, may decide that you are simply not meant to do whatever it is you're attempting, and you'll have to figure out how to achieve your goal regardless. Imagination! RPGs require a certain amount of imagination from both players and GMs. The story will be affected by everyone at the table, and may require a little bit of imagination to get off the ground. Oh, look at that handsome gentleman. He's never done anything wrong in his life. Poons, or plays on words. No session of Adventures in Ankh-Morpork, or Discworld books for that matter, would be complete without at least a few puns, or plays on words. Be prepared to twist, wrangle, and torment the English language to serve your needs, or just to make people chuckle. Friends! We can't help you with this one. Unless we're counted amongst your friends, in which case, hi, how are you? It's been too long. I know we should organize a catch-up at some point next week. No, we're busy next week. But could you do the 25th? No, well, we'll message you about it and sort something out. Promise. Is that real, Morphidius? You're gonna contact me on the 25th or something? You do enjoy good chuckling? It's for the best. You'll want to bring together 3 to 6 like-minded individuals willing to put up with the puns. who are up for an adventure based in the historic byways and filth-covered highways of Ankh-Morpork. Obviously, you can play with as many players as you like, but once you get beyond about 5 players, making decisions and ensuring everyone gets their time to shine becomes exponentially more difficult. Likewise, having only 2 players at the table limits your ability to bounce off one another and have things go in unexpected and fun directions. A nice sensible chuckle every now and again. Well, maybe more than that. All my friends love puns. Or so I keep telling. Yeah, that makes about sense. Time! Adventures in Ankh-Morpork is intended to be played as a short-form storytelling game, or as a palate cleanser between long-form campaign play. The adventure in these pages should only take 1 session of around 3 to 4 hours to complete, allowing you to get the feel of the game with barely any commitment whatsoever. There will be some guidance for those that want to play longer-form games, but the core system is designed to be like the Discworld novels. A one-off adventure rather than an epic journey involving stolen jewelry and a lot of walking. I like that they're upfront about that. You have a lot of RPGs when they write up something like this, they won't even mention like how long a campaign is supposed to go for or what it's designed to do. But the fact that it's being upfront and saying, hey, look, this is only designed to be like a palate cleanser between big stuff, I really dig that on the whole. I think it's a good idea, and I really do think more game systems should do it. If you're trying to sell me on a system, if you want to be like, hey, you should play this, one of the things I'm always going to be keeping in mind is, okay, what is my time commitment as the GM? In order for my players to get the most amount of value and fun out of this game, how long is a campaign? How long is an adventure? I need to know. Because if the idea is that a campaign is supposed to go for like 2 years or more, then I'm probably not going to do it. But if it says, hey, this is kind of designed for like a month, maybe 2 of play, like if you're playing weekly, maybe go up to like 12 weeks, that I can dig. Because when I sit down to write an adventure, I also have a good mentality for how long it should go. Also, this means I don't think there'll be much in the way of leveling up, but that might have to wait for the full core book. Oh man. I'm sorry, that's just... Oh. So this picture didn't have to go this hard. It is an orangutan. It is also the librarian. And he is currently holding the Monster Fun Grimoire. But that's just such an amazing picture right there. I get the feeling this book's just gonna be packed with the librarian. And the contrast there, it's just awesome and slightly terrifying. Goofy as hell. Playing the game. A quick note before we get playing the game, this is a quick start, which means that it is a stripped down rule set designed to get your character's feet hitting the cobbles as fast as possible. As such, there are some aspects of the rules that we have chosen not to include. We provide you with pre-generated characters on page 41, and adventure to muddle through on page 21, because we're considerate like that. Also, worth noting is that while this is close to the final game, there's many a slip twixt dress and drawers, as Naniog is wont to say. Some of the content here may look slightly different when the full game comes out, which is fair enough. It's my face to the gaming table. Love to see it. Scenes! The narrative of your game can be broken down into scenes just like Discworld novels. Each scene is a discrete moment. It takes place at a specific place at a specific time with specific people present. The GM sets the scene for the players and then narrates how the PC's actions affect the scene. Once players have done all they want to or can do in a scene, the GM moves the actions onto the next scene. Scenes can span minutes, hours, days, weeks, months, years, decades, and even eons if you really want them to. But realistically, most scenes within this book shouldn't take more than an hour tops. Once the scene has been set, players are going to want to start fiddling with it. To do this, they will be using their characters, player characters or PCs to be precise, and dice to take actions and attempt tests. String these scenes together in a semi-coherent manner, and Bajon strong in the arms your uncle. You've gone and got yourself a story. Tests! So here are the core principles for it. Whenever players try to do something in a scene that has a chance of failure, they will need to make a test. No matter whether you are snooping around, intense political negotiations, or trying to outdrink a dwarf, all tests are resolved in the same way. Attempting a test. The test itself will follow the same steps every time. Declare an action, justify the action using traits, GM determines the outcome die, roll the outcome die against the narrativium die, get help, optional, resolve the test, not optional. So there's going to be a help mechanic from other players, I think. Declare an action. The player says what they want to do. If the GM thinks that they need to make a test in order to do so, then move on to the next step. Justify the action using traits. The player who declared the action decides which trait on their character sheet they're using to justify the action. It is encouraged to twist the meanings of your traits and use them in absolutely ridiculous ways to justify actions that have no business justifying. So, once again, nailing the vibe of Discworld. It's already encouraging people to be like, to push the boundaries of what a trait might say. And I'm kind of interested to see how that works out. GM determines the outcome die. The GM then determines the dice that will be used in the test out of the D4, D6, D10, and D12. If the justification is absolutely flawless, or this is very much within the PC's wheelhouse, it's a D12. If the PC clearly has no idea what they're doing, and their attempt at justification is flimsy, it's a D4. The D6 and the D10 come between these points. As determined by the GM also decides what the consequences for failing the test will be. No D8 though. Here we go. Roll the outcome die against the narrativium die. The player rolls the outcome die the GM decided was appropriate. The GM then rolls the narrativium die, the D8. Because the 8th color, the color of magic, yeah, okay. I see what you did there, Mophidius. Very clever. Well done. Once the dice are rolled, the results are compared. If the outcome die has rolled higher, the PC has been successful. If the narrativium die is higher, then the PC has failed and may now be subject to unforeseen consequences or twists, represented as new traits. If the dice have the same result, then it's a tie. The PC achieves what they set out to do, but they also suffer consequences as a new trait, twist, or both. So it's a roll against system where you're trying to roll over, but the difficulty is always at random. So it's kind of a liar's dice system? Because you're always kind of trying to bet that you can beat the D8, whatever it is. So you're always wanting to roll a D10 or a D12 based on your trait. But the GM sets the outcome die, so... okay. Very much a narrative system. But that's also supremely easy. Get help! Please, get help. If the test is a failure, then one PC in the scene can spend 1 luck to try and help. This is risky, however, since this will also make the consequence for failing the test 1 degree worse, and open themselves up to the consequences of the test, alongside the original test taker. If they still want to help, they spend 1 point of luck, and then they repeat the first 2 steps. Explain how they're helping, and the justification for doing so. and roll the outcome die the GM decides is appropriate. Their outcome die replaces the original outcome die. If the test is still a failure or a tie, then both PCs suffer the now much worse consequences. Okay. Yeah, alright. So I don't think there's going to be a dice pushing mechanic because it's very much down to the luck of it. The GM does not re-roll the narrativium die when another PC decides to help, but the GM can at any point during the test decide to re-roll the narrativium die, using an NPC's trait as justification. This second result replaces the first result. The GM can only do this once per test. So we have to justify it, but we could do it. Okay. So it's giving the GM some agency. That's not something you usually see regarding the mechanics in a narrativist system. Resolve the test. After the dice are rolled, the GM narrates the outcome, whether it was a glorious success, a surprising stalemate, or an embarrassing tumble into the ink. They also describe how the PCs suffer any consequences, page 18, for failing the test. If no player tried to help during the test, then the players suffering consequences can spend 1 luck to reduce the severity of the consequences they suffer by 1 degree. Example: Constable Surly Underhand is trying to get some information from a Shades informant while in uniform. The action is something fairly simple for him. He has the trait a dwarf born and raised in the Shades, so he has contacts and it's not unusual. He is in uniform, however, so what could have been a D12 if he was in plain clothes becomes a D10. Okay, so the situation dictates the difficulty. Oh yeah. The art in this is just fantastic. Give me another like 30 years, that'll be me. Getting stabbed by old men in the snow. Group tests. There are 2 situations in which a group test is more appropriate than individual tests. The first is when everyone wants the same outcome, but only 1 success is necessary to achieve it. For instance, when people are trying to gain information about the same thing from different sources. The second is when everyone wants the same outcome, and 1 failure will stop them all from achieving it. For example, when the whole party is trying to move around without being spotted. For both instances, as with other tests, the players state their action and traits and the GM decides what die they roll. It's perfectly normal for different players to be rolling different types of die in a group test. All players then roll. The GM only rolls the narrativium die once and compares each player's outcome die to that narrativium die roll. Then the GM narrates the results. Narrates each result. For those tests where everyone wants the same outcome, and only 1 success is necessary, the outcome die that rolls the highest has the most advantageous outcome. For example, the most pertinent clue. All other results add their own flavor and support. If successful, or if a failure, they undermine the most successful outcome. If the narrativium die has the highest result, the players will suffer consequences, for example, gaining incorrect information. For tests when everyone wants the same outcome and 1 failure will stop them achieving it, the outcome die that rolls the lowest is counted as the result of the test. Any PC that is involved in a group test may not help another PC on that test, but if any PC is not involved in the group test, they may help as normal. So for instance, as previously stated, there are no special rules for combat. If a fight does break out, it is treated the same as any other test, with a slight focusing on the narrativium die to represent the opposing force in the conflict rather than the world or story in general. I do like that it's addressed combat there though. Because then you would resolve combat, for instance in a bar fight, as a group test. Million to 1. Sometimes your players will surprise the GM with an absolutely absurd, ridiculous, or genius plan that is so outlandishly unlikely it makes you stop and go, it's a 1,000,000 to 1 chance, but it just might work. In these situations, the GM can rule that PCs automatically succeed on their plan. These auto successes should be very few and far between. Remember that any attempt to force a 1,000,000 to 1 chance is doomed to failure. Oh, I love that though. I'm wondering how you'd work that, but I guess it'd just be a case of keep yourself open for the opportunity for it to happen. And just let it all roll out. Characters and traits. We're gonna zoom out a little bit for this one because I believe, yeah, there it is. Characters and adventures in Ankh-Morpork are a collection of traits held together in the approximate shape of a person. In this way, they are not so different from their players. These traits are recorded on your character sheet and are how players use their PCs to interact with the world around them. In the full game, we'll spend time lovingly crafting elaborate backstories and slightly amusing names for your character. However, for this quick start, we've provided pre-filled in character sheets to get you going with a minimum of fuss. Here's a quick run through of the character sheet and what all these things mean. Your character's names and pronouns. The group they belong to. Their species and background. A troll raised by loving human parents. Aww. Niche traits, their experiences and where they fit in their group. Public relations, the face of the group. Okay. Their core, their outlook and how they react to the world. Quirk traits, the odd little idiosyncrasies and eccentricities that make their character who they are. A brief character description, a place to note down any consequences you gain during play, notes where you write notes, luck, a measure of what your character can get away with, and character art. After all, a picture says 1,000 words. Okay. So, considering this is a narrativist system... Hello, Constable Cliff. Doing really great there, bud. But considering this is a narrative system, one could reverse engineer a lot of this pretty easily. Just saying. Like, I don't have access to a character sheet or anything, but if that's what it breaks down to, so name could be whatever, but organization, the Thieves Guild, for instance, the Assassins Guild, Seamstress Guild, something that you make up or is made for it. I'll be interested to see if there's any actual mechanics around backgrounds, but I think because this is very much a narrativist system, it won't matter too much. All these things are traits. These traits take the place of more traditional statistics and can be used in a test to argue the applicability of your actions. They tell you what a character is good at, as well as what they struggle with. They can be used to influence the world and story the characters find themselves in, while also providing information to help you play that character at the table. The only exception to this is luck, which tracks your favor with the lady, and therefore how much you can get away with before things start catching up with you. Characters have access to everything a trait could encompass. Let's take an example chosen completely at random and in no way related to this adventure whatsoever. A character who has the trait, the Watch, will have access to everything that entails. Official badge, shiny breastplate, one sword, short, or weapon appropriate to the species, and AM $38 a month plus allowances. The same is true of every trait. A troll is incredibly strong and smarter in cold weather. An iconographer has all the tools of the trade needed to keep those imps painting. And someone who remembers the good bad old days probably knows their way around a back alley or 12. Provided they haven't been built on or otherwise closed down for the sake of hygiene. Luck. Luck is a measure of your character's favor with the lady. Where is it? The lady is one of the gods of the disc, one of those feuding, grumbling, all-too-human entities who live on Dunmanifestin, playing games with lies and dice, and sometimes snacks. Sometimes, not always. It is spent in two ways. Firstly, to decrease the severity of a consequence, and secondly, to help another player with a test. Both of these cost 1 luck, and only 1 luck can be spent per test. It is up to the players whether they wish to take the safe option and tone down the consequences, or risk another roll and try to gain a success. To regain luck, you'll have to do things that pique the lady's interest. Excellent, unusual, or downright weird roleplay, ideas and use of traits can all earn you back a point of luck at the GM's discretion. Depending on what the maximums would be, I would probably be inclined to have chat be able to award luck as well. Because it has a pretty limited use, and I like the fact that it's very malleable in that way. Awarding luck. The GM is the representative of the lady at the table. As such, the GM can award luck to players for excellent roleplay, ridiculous plans, amazing or awful puns, and outstanding bastardization of the English language. This should be kept rare enough for players to feel like they've earned it rather than expected every time. A PC jumps out a second-story window and argues that their trait is eager to see more of the world. Should allow them to land without too much injury. They're eager to see the world, and the world is rushing up eagerly to meet them. The GM gives them a D10 and decides that such justification deserves some luck. However, it's not going to entirely negate the fact that they've jumped out of a window without any precautions. Their roll is 6 on the outcome die against an 8 on the narrativium. The player uses their newfound luck to reduce the consequence from at least 1 broken limb to has thorns in uncomfortable places. Thus, the lady, intrigued by this wanton display of lack of foresight, ensures a soft-ish landing for them in a previously unseen compost heap. Traits and tests. Everything on your character sheet is a trait. Even your character's name can be used as a trait if you think it'll justify your character being good at the test they're attempting. Oh, okay. Traits aren't necessarily good or bad, but are situational. For example, having the trait "I spend more time in the drum than the library" would help you if you were trying to win a drinking contest or track down a specific unscrupulous person, but hinder you if you need to do some occult research. The easiest way to think of it is, I have X trait, therefore I should be good at Y action. However, one of the key aspects of Pratchett's work is wordplay. As such, we not only expect but downright insist that players bend, twist, bludgeon, beat, and otherwise wrangle the traits to fit scenarios they were never meant for and justify actions they should have little to no business being associated with. When justifying a trait for a test, the player should state why it will be useful for their action, then the GM decides the dice value. At the end of the day, deciding the exact die values for a particular test is much less important than rolling them. Hammerhand's trait "always hits what he should be aiming at" could be used to justify making a crack shot, or it could be much more amusingly used to justify a lucky ricochet. Perhaps Hammerhand's hands fly off his wrist while he's gesticulating wildly and hit something he should have been concentrating on while he has an argument with Igorina about stitching. Both are completely valid uses of the trait. So definitely it's... See, for me, this is kind of... Okay. There's a lot of narrative systems out there at the moment. There's a lot of them. You could argue like Blades in the Dark, for instance, and even Powered by the Apocalypse games are both very much narrative systems. Both of them kind of have this... they kind of put the expectation on the players as well as the GM to write the story, and that's not necessarily a bad thing, but it's also kind of not what every player wants. What we're seeing here a lot is this kind of happy middle point where the GM is still the storyteller in a lot of ways, but we are the storytellers. So the players are also inclined to kind of twist the narrative around them, and I appreciate that a lot more, I think. Mind you, I would not run the system with a bastard GM. Just putting it out there. And there's the luggage. Looking very handsome with all them feats. Consequences! Yo, what else? Consequences. The thing about actions is they have consequences. These will manifest in gameplay as a new trait for the PCs, a twist in the narrative, or both. These traits are temporary and only apply as long as they are relevant. Some will go away on their own at the end of the scene, others will require the PC to spend time removing them. There are several degrees of consequence: inconsequential, minor, major, and exceptional. Bastard GM. I wouldn't call you a bastard GM. I've been in one of your games. I wouldn't call you a bastard GM. Inconsequential consequences are things which will cause a small inconvenience for the PC. Getting a paper cut, being overcharged for a sausage in a bun, or getting the trait has a kick me sign stuck on their back. Minor consequences will cause an inconvenience for the PC. Twisting an ankle, losing money at the races, or getting the trait has a rumor going around. Major consequences will cause problems for the PC and may affect those around them. Calling the librarian a monkey, losing Cryophase's money at the races, or getting the trait wanted by the Thieves Guild. Yeah, I'd call all those major consequences, yeah. Exceptional consequences are threatening to life and livelihood, and will cause the PC to be removed from the scene and potentially the story. This should be a conversation between GM and player as to how they wish to proceed. Some options can include a near-death experience, being wanted by the partition, a magical mishap, or any other appropriately exceptional consequence that feels narratively appropriate. A PC can spend a point of luck during a test to decrease the degree of consequence by 1, unless another PC has attempted to help them in the test. Now, since there are no health points in this game, you may be asking how and if characters can die. This is generally handled through an exceptional consequence of a failed test. In the full game, there will be rules covering this, but since we sincerely doubt anyone will be dying in the span of this adventure, this is not a challenge. Challenge accepted! The GM is, of course, free to give someone a brush with death if they really screw up a particular role, provided they remember to talk like this. See, the key is just to think like Christopher Lee and you're good to go. An example of play. The party has made their way into the Sunshine Sanctuary for Sick Dragons. After a brief description, Raphael, playing Cliff, talks with Rosie, Devant Mollet, and discovers that while she is more than willing to aid the Watch with their inquiries, there are dragons to round up first. Renee, playing Surly, decides to try to round up some of the dragons while Cliff continues their conversation. The GM, Ellery, decides this calls for a test as the outcome is uncertain. Ellery, the GM, okay Surly, what trait do you have that would make you good at dragon wrangling? Renee, I got blends into the background. That should let me sneak up on them without being noticed. Ellery, absolutely. I will say that while you blend into the background excellently on the street, the paints and pigments you've got will make it harder for you to sneak up on a dragon as they are always sniffing for something flammable to eat. So take a D10 on that. I'm also going to say that any consequences are probably going to be minor for this test. Well, the fact that they're setting up the, saying what the consequences will be straight up is also really good. Renee rolls a 5 on their outcome die and the GM rolls a 6 on the narrativium die. The GM describes the scene. Cliff is patiently talking through the events of the night with Rosie while a vaguely dwarf-sized shape scuttles across the background. Surly, you see a small dragon currently dragging a half-eaten boot under a handcart. Slowly and carefully you approach from behind. As you get to just outside grabbing distance, its head shoots up in panic. It cracks its head on the underside of the cart and lets out a pained shriek and a small gout of flame. You hear some worrying sounds of indigestion. Does anyone want to help Surly? Remember that you'll increase the consequences to major. Aisha, playing Hammerhan, decides to try and improve this situation. Aisha, I've got the core trait better it happened to me than you, so I'd like to help by getting Surly out of the way of this upset dragon. The GM, sure, that makes sense. You're trying to protect a fellow officer from a dangerous situation. You've definitely done this before, and the trait and action both fit really well. Have a D12, spend 1 luck for helping and give me a roll. Aisha rolls their Arkham die. As this is a continuation of the same test, the GM does not re-roll the Narrativium die. Damn, I rolled a 6. Right, that's a double, so it's a tie. So Surly, you hear the dragon's stomach start to rumble ominously. You know that swamp dragons have notoriously sensitive stomachs and a tendency to become craters if startled. You stare in fascinated horror as the dragon's eyes start to cross and it hiccups ominously. Once. Twice. Silence. Then your world spins wildly as Hammerhand tackles you to the ground a split second before the sturdy walls of the Sunshine Sanctuary are tested once again. The small dragon explodes, destroying the handcart and showering you both with its contents. Last night's mucking out. Hammerhand, you manage to get Surly to safety and they are protected from the shower hitting the ground. Unfortunately, that protection is you. Gain the trait covered in dragon feces. Having already spent their luck to help Surly, Aisha can't also spend luck to decrease the degree of the consequence of the test. They did at least succeed in what they were set out to do and have saved Surly from an exploding dragon. The scene continues as the party attempts to solve the mystery of the stolen dragons. Oh, speaking of. And this would be a scene from God's Gods. Because this will go, yeah, that goes straight into the adventure. All right, well, we're gonna take a short little break so I can run the ads for Twitch. We're only gonna be about 3 minutes or so. By the looks of things, we'll probably be done by like 9:30ish. That's fine. I'm not gonna drag this out longer than we have to. And I'll probably just bring into Dwarf once we're done. But yeah, no, I like it. Like, I know it's not the usual thing I kind of GM. I'll leave final thoughts to afterwards. All right, we're gonna go on the break. We'll be back in a couple of minutes. We hope to see you then. And we are back. Like I said, we're all gonna be doing it mostly just to keep the Twitch pre-rolls away. But hello everyone, welcome back. We are currently going through the Discworld Quickstart, and we have gone through the basic rules of the game. And I will say that I am enjoying it, and I'm looking forward to running it as well. I'll need the right players for it, but I think it'll be a lot of fun. Because, like I said, once upon a time, I had the GURPS Discworld game. The rules for that and everything else like that. And it very much had the mechanical... It was tied to the GURPS mechanics. Which I know are for some people, but they're definitely not for me, and I don't really think they really fit the vibe of Discworld either. But I feel like this is actually fitting really well. All that said, how about we get to the adventure? Up in Smoke. Welcome to Up in Smoke, a mystery adventure for adventures in Ankh-Morpork. If you are reading this and you are not the GM, stop now. The contents of this adventure are GM-only information and should not be directly shared with players. Well, guess what? We're breaking the rules! We're all players in this game of life. Let's get to it. There's no grays, only white that's gone grubby. I'm surprised you don't know that. And sin, young man, is when you treat people like things, including yourself. That's what sin is. Granny Waverwax, as always. Getting started! Before you invite your players to pick a character, things will go a lot smoother if you have read the rules in the first section of this book and taken a quick look at this adventure. You don't need to read everything, but a general overview of how the game works and what shape the story might take will help to keep things running smoothly. If you only read one thing in advance, read the adventure overview below. Once you have a handle on things, you gather your players and present them with the available characters on page 41. Each player picks the character they want to play and introduces themselves to the group. Next, read the read aloud text on page 24 to set the scene, and you're ready to go. A note on formatting. Throughout the adventure, any text like this means that there's more information either on that spread or elsewhere in the adventure. Okay, that's actually really good, because that means you have context and you can actually cross-reference and stuff like that. Adventure overview! The players take on the roles of members of the Watch, Ankh-Morpork's police. The team has been asked to investigate a break-in at Lady Ramkin's Sunshine Sanctuary for sick dragons. As they investigate this crime, they will start to uncover what has happened by following clues and investigating some key locations, page 23, within the city. If your group decides to go somewhere different, and you feel comfortable improvising that location, we encourage you to do so. The clues all eventually lead to Misbegot Bridge, where the culprit is preparing the last stage of their plan. Your players will hopefully rush in and save the day, or at least fail in a way that will make a good headline for the Times. What's going on? A few weeks ago, the architects of Stone on Stone, page 38, were hired to inspect Misbegot Bridge. They sent a surveyor by the name of John Johnson, a man filled with hatred of Golemkind and his employers. John hatched a plan and spent the last few weeks in the Lamp and Needles, working out a way to steal enough dragons to blow a hole in the bridge. Once he was ready, he stole into Nobblers and Sons, page 34, to hijack the coal delivery carriage. With this, he broke into the Sunshine Sanctuary and stole a dozen or so highly volatile dragons. He took them back to his rooms at Mrs. Evans' boarding house to wait until nightfall and sneak under Misbegot Bridge. If he is not stopped, he will set the dragons off and complete his scheme. Recommended reading: Men-at-Arms, Guards, The Truth, the complete Ankh-Morpork City Guide. That's actually something I'm gonna have to see if I've been slowly going through the books again and getting them ordered in by the bookshop. I'm gonna see if they can actually get in stuff like that though. I hope they can. Men-at-Arms, Guards, The Truth. I'm surprised with the mention of Golemkind they don't mention Feet of Clay, because that's also really important, but most of the adventure follows the party as they discover the how of John's plan, but the why is equally important, especially for the finale. John dislikes Ankh-Morpork's rising reliance on golems and non-human workers, reasoning that a man's ability to work is what separates him from non-librarian apes. He has recently lost his own job to the golem plots, on page 39, which was the final straw. He has decided to visit his anger on the city at large while ruining the reputation of the company that fired him. John Johnson, surveyor with ill motives. Hear him? Wild-eyed and desperate, well-dressed but poorly maintained, singed eyebrows. So those are his traits. Throughout the adventure, John may be described by various characters. Depending on how you want to portray him, he may come across as threatening, harmless, or charming. His physical appearance is laughably generic. He is a human of average height, with brown hair, brown eyes, and wears a brown suit. Okay. Key locations. Throughout the adventure, the PCs may investigate some or all of the locations below, starting at the Sunshine Sanctuary on page 24 in the Scours. The Ankh is a large and slow-moving river that splits the great city of Ankh-Morpork in half. This adventure contains locations in the Scours on the east bank and Dimwell on the west bank. When PCs want to go to a location, simply turn to the corresponding page. If a PC is crossing from the Scours to Dimwell or vice versa, they will have to cross Misbegot Bridge on page 30. The Scours. East Bank? Oh, okay, and that's just the... So on the East Bank we have Sunshine Sanctuary, Lamp and Needles, The Times in the Bucket. River Ankh has Misbegot Bridge, Dimwell, the West Bank, Noblers and Sons, Mrs. Ethan's Boarding House, and Stone on Stone. Mr. Vimes had told him never to get too excited about clues, because clues could lead you a dismal dance. They could become a habit. You ended up finding a wooden leg, a silk slipper, and a feather at the scene of a crime, and constructing an elegant theory involving a one-legged ballet dancer and a production of Chicken Lake, The Fifth Elephant. Tips! While writing this adventure, it's useful to keep the following tips in mind. Consequences. The main core of the adventure is finding out who done it, and what they're going to done next. As such, the potential consequences for failed tests should be things that are important. NPCs forgetting information, the loss of precious time, or the destruction of useful clues are all consequences that impact a character more than physical harm. We've provided some example consequences for failed tests on each page to provide inspiration. See, this is going to be important for me because I'm in the process of writing an adventure for use with this system. So seeing how it's formatted and etc. is going to be really helpful for me. Clues. On each location, we have provided a box out of what happened here. These box outs give you a quick overview of John's actions in that location and allow you to extrapolate clues from the past. We have also provided some example clues that might be there. You may use as many or as few of these as you like, and should use your own common sense to determine what the PCs find depending on their actions. Random events. On Misbegot Bridge, you will find a list of random events you can use to spice up travel or a scene. You may decide to roll on this table whenever the party crosses the bridge, in the middle of any other scene, or simply use them for inspiration. Own up to mistakes! Sometimes you will say something that doesn't make sense, or leads players to the wrong conclusion. Most of the time, this isn't a problem. The world can be a little messy and players will surprise you with their corkscrew logic at the best of times. Sometimes, however, you will say something that makes absolutely no sense and send the players on a complete tangent. In these cases, it's easiest to put up your hand and say, yes, actually the footprints do lead up and down the path. Sorry about that. I think it's something of a, kind of as more as a personal comment than anything else. But I feel like a lot of GMs have this viewpoint of themselves in which they have to be infallible. Like, they kind of have to present this appearance to the players that they can't say anything wrong. And I think it's good that there's a lot more systems nowadays that are just kind of being like, you're running an adventure. If you make a mistake and you need to like fix it, just front up and do it. For instance, me and pronunciations. Misbegot Bridge. This adventure is written so that all the East Bank and West Bank locations are separated in the book by Misbegot Bridge. If you want to know if PCs will need to cross the bridge to travel between two locations, you can flip between the scenes and check if Misbegot Bridge falls between them. Oh, okay. Oh, I like that. Alright. Alright. So for formatting for how I would do it, you just have splash screens for every scene. Oh, and they're hyperlinked. Oh man. I am way too excited about that. That is, oh, love it. Okay. Lady Ramkin's Sunshine Sanctuary for Sick Dragons. What happened here? John Johnson broke in last night by using a key and carriage he stole from Noblers and Sons. While he was there, he let all the dragons free to cover how many he had actually stolen. That's actually really clever. Read aloud. You've been ordered to head to the Sunshine Sanctuary for sick dragons to investigate a break-in. Your orders were given to you personally by the commander of the City Watch himself, Sir Samuel Vines. You remember his words well. It was particularly clear that all 3 points were equally important. 1. Find out what happened. 2. Protect the people of Ankh-Morpork. 3. Don't cause more paperwork than necessary. He also mentioned that if you need help during your investigation, you should talk to Sergeant Anguel. She's taken her day off in the bucket over on Gleam Street, so don't expect her to be happy about it. But we're establishing that there is an NPC that the players can call on if they need it. You find yourselves standing on the neat cobbles of Morfork Street, blinking in the morning sun. The wrought iron gates before you bear the words, "Here be dragons." If that wasn't enough of a clue that you were in the right place, a papier-mâché statue of a dragon with a slut in its forehead sits to the right of the gate. It appears to be holding a bedraggled sign that reads, "Don't let my flame go out." Clues. Hungover dragon. A golden deceiver, a good watch dragon, called Ruffly, is unconscious on the grounds just inside the gate. He was fed a bottle of Bear Hugger's whiskey, stolen from the Lamp and Needles. Whoever did this knew that Ruffly was a loud dragon and took steps to pacify him. Copy of the Times. A discarded newspaper. There is an article in the Alchemist Guild exploding, a story on a freak downpour of rain that will be happening around noon, and a think piece on the charitable efforts of the Golem Trust. None of these stories are directly related. Wheel ruts. Wheel ruts outside the loading bay of the sanctuary are fresh, suggesting a carriage was here last night. The carriage that was here was from Nobler and Sons. Morfork Street. The Scours. It is a quiet morning, respectable houses, faint smell of the Ankh. This street is home to the Sunshine Sanctuary, which has a large and sturdy gate and very thick walls, the kind that are designed to reassure the rest of the neighborhood. Next to the gate, nestled in further signs, which read "Adopt a Dragon Today" and "The Ankh-Morpork Sunshine Sanctuary for Sick Dragons," in case anyone was still unsure, is a bell pull that will draw the attention of Rosie Devant Malay from within. The only other business of note is the Lamp and Needles, page 26. Most other businesses moved away after finding out that acts of dragon are not covered by insurance. Rosie Devant Malay, she is the head dragon keeper, she, her. Highborn but practical about it. Nose blind to dragons, okay, so she can't smell them. Heart big enough to fall into, pronounces the secret H at the start of words. White? Well, see, that kind of thing is that's the kind of thing a GM needs. Rosie Devant Malay was the one who first called for the watch after discovering the escaped dragons this morning. It's there. That's good. The Sunshine Sanctuary interior. A sulfuric with sooty residue optimistic slogans. The interior of the sanctuary is in pandemonium, with the last of the dragons being wrangled into the cages by Rosie Devant Malay, with the help of a few interchangeable Emmas. For those who aren't aware, well-bred young ladies who seem genuinely excited about shoveling Dragon Monk. Once the dragons have been calmed down and corralled into their pens, it will become clear that a dozen of them are missing. Generally around 2 feet long, a female dragon is called a hen, while a male dragon is called a pumet, up to 8 months, a cock, 14 months, a snood to 2 years, and then a cob to death. A dead swamp dragon is known as a crater. That snuck up on me. You can roll 2d4s on the table to create a random dragon and determine what it is doing. Missing! A dozen dragons is enough to make anyone nervous. But what makes it worse is that one of them is Gunter. Gunter is a particularly fine example of a pixie-faced smut, a breed that requires extra care and attention from its owner. If Gunter does not receive his nutritional additives within exactly 8 hours, he will explode. Rosie Devant Malay will insist that PCs take a dose with them. This is technically against the laws of narrative causality that determine this sort of looming threat should have exactly 24 hours. Okay, and here's our 2d4 table. A pixie face smut, many congenital problems, for experts only chaos. A nothing fjord blue, good scales, tendency to homesickness, its large eyes seem permanently sad. A golden deceiver, good watch dragon, should not be allowed near children. And a Jessington's deceiver, small and better behaved than the golden, hoards pickle jars. Eating, the dragon is trying to eat a leather boot that looks much thicker than its throat. Freedom, the dragon is making a bid for freedom, sneaking under a doorway and out into the world. Burning, a puff of flame erupts from the mouth of the dragon, setting fire to something nearby. And being adorable, it widens its eyes to a dangerous size, holding up a little leash and making a little mewling sound. Clues. So we have clues on the outside and clues on the inside. Alright. Mysterious admirer. The head dragon keeper, Rosie Devant, has been the recipient of attempted wooing by a man who would approach her in the Lamp and Needles over the last 2 weeks. The man was John, and he asked her a lot of questions about dragons. Empty coal barrels. A coal dust delivery was missing this morning. Usually is delivered by the proprietor of Nobblers and Sons over on Warfinger Street. Satcherisa. A reporter from the Times was snooping around the sanctuary this morning. Rosie had to turn her away until she could get a handle on the dragon problem. Keys. The only people with keys to the sanctuary are Lady Sybil Vimes out of the City on Business, Rosie, and the proprietor of Nobblers and Sons. A scrap of brown cloth can be found in a dragon's mouth. It came from John's trouser leg. Menu. A faded menu from the Lamp and Needles has been pinned to the wall. Rosie often visits the tavern. Articles. A frame full of articles about the sanctuary. Rosie can inform players that she was in talks with Satcherisa to perhaps start a dragon-based supplement to the Times. She was thinking of calling it a monthly guide to some dragons that most wonderful of creatures, and also stories and inspirational anecdotes regarding them. Consequences. Distrust. The Watch make a fool of themselves in front of Rosie, make her reach out to the Times in order to find her dragons. Oh, okay. So major consequence. And soot. An exploding dragon gives a PC the trait covered in soot. Minor. Doe-eyed explosive. A random dragon takes a liking to a PC following them. The dragon will explode if it is ever more than 10 feet from the PC. Minor to major? I guess. But this is a good way to set out even a mystery adventure. I like it. What happened here? John Johnson has spent his evenings here over the last few weeks gathering information on the sanctuary and planning his upcoming crimes. Morphic Street, the Scourers. Quiet and peaceful, respectable houses, faint smell of the Ankh. The front of the Lamp and Needles leans dangerously out into the street. This is allowed because it is historic. Exactly what history it has is unclear. It is closed in the morning, but enough banging on the door will wake Rufus and Marla. The interiors. A forced coziness, trinkets on every wall, the scent of musty velvet. Run by Rufus and Marla, the Lamp and Needles is host to many a well-behaved reveler, as long as their reveling is done at a respectable volume. A variety of armchairs threaten to swallow any who sit in them, and in the evening the place is filled with a low murmur of quiet people having an excellent time. Oh god, and here's a... yeah. An in-depth anatomical diagram of a swamp dragon. Rufus and Marla, tavern owners, he and she. Compassionate bickerers, hard of hearing and more often understanding, open-minded but old-fashioned. The pair of elderly publicans who own the Lamp and Needles can answer questions about Rosie, Crippus Nobler, and John Johnson, all of whom have been in the tavern over the last week. Unfortunately, the couple's hearing isn't what it used to be, leading to any questions spoken at a reasonable volume being misinterpreted with amusing results. Missing patron. Crippus Nobler of Nobler & Sons wasn't in last night, which is strange. He usually drops in for a quiet pint after his cold delivery at the sanctuary. Sacharisa. Mahler is particularly proud of the fact that her tavern is going to be featured in the Times for being in the top 18 most crooked medium-sized taverns in Ankh-Morpork. The reporter was over this morning and asked a lot of questions about the sanctuary. Mrs. Ethan. John was struggling to pay for drinks. See Theodolite below. Mahler remembers him complaining about owing Mrs. Effin his last dollar. Unknown to her, Mrs. Effin's boarding house is where John has been staying. Warning signs. After a few too many drinks on a night when he wasn't talking to Rosie about dragons, John spent half the night bending Rufus's ear about the unfairness of the world. All Rufus remembers for certain is that he said, "I'm going to use a dragon will solve everything." Rufus didn't understand the metaphor, but was happy enough when John left. Theodolite. Rufus has a strange brass device that seems halfway between a telescope and a pocket watch. John Johnson paid for his last round of drinks with the device. Etched on the inside of the brass workings are the words "stone on stone." Dimwell. Rufus is proud that John came over for the best pint in Ankh-Morpork since he lives all the way over in Dimwell. Consequences. Thrown out. Rufus throws the party out of the bar for causing a ruckus and does not allow them back in. So a major consequence. Tipsy. An offered drink gives a PC the trait tired and emotional. Misunderstanding. Mahler mishears something the PC said and gives them false information. See, that kind of thing is something that you could do as a part of role-playing rather than anything else. The Times and the Bucket. What happened here? Many things, but none directly involving the theft of the dragons. This location is a good place for the PCs to go to if they are looking for a new lead or want to get more information about a specific clue. Gleam Street, the Scours. Narrows and winding, newspaper salesmen, uneven cobbles, and faint acrid smell. Home to two fine institutions, the Times, purveyor of truth and knowledge, and the Bucket, chosen bar of the watch. Oh, I'd have to scramble to find it. I don't think that's quite true. The watch sometimes drink there, particularly Nobby sometimes drinks there with Colin. But no, they have a different bar that they go to. Oh, that's gonna bug me. I can't remember it. But it's called a watch bar. And I think the owner's like Mr. Cheese or something, and he lets them stay there because they always pay their tabs. It's a whole thing. But the Times. Running machinery, an acrid chemical scent, dwarfs being industrious, very vocal editing. The Times is Ankh-Morpork's premier source of news. Watchmen are generally not allowed to come in unless they are bearing a story, so the group will need to convince Gunilla Goodmountain they are worth letting in. Once inside, Sacharisa Cripslock can be found at her well-used typewriter, and Otto Cherik can be found down in the dark room. Gunilla Goodmountain, Times co-founder, he, him. A dwarf on the lookout for a deal, quick and accurate fingers, mechanically minded. Sacharisa Cripslock writes everything down, good looking if considered over several centuries, suffers from misplaced gentility, and Otto Cherik, he, him, obsessed with light and color, wouldn't hurt a fly, thick Ilborvald accent. Clues. The Bucket, unofficial watch bar. There's another one though, I remember it because... Wait, no, I'm mixing up with the mended drum. Never mind. Fuck. It's been a long day. I'm gonna chalk it up to that. Clues! Missing Nobler. Sacharisa has already been to Nobler's and Sons while investigating the story, but it seems they weren't open. Fire! Sacharisa has to cut the chat short as she has to go report on a fire over in Dimwell. Unbeknownst to her, this is Mrs. Effen's boarding house. Have you seen this man? A call for persons matching John's identity can be put in the paper about to go out. At the end of the next scene, the group will get reports about the man working for Stone on Stone. Nah, I think it is the bucket. Because I know it bears. No buyers. Otto's iconograph. The Times iconographer took a picture of the scene of the crime this morning. He would be happy to share a copy with a connoisseur. The picture reveals one of the clues available in the Sunshine Sanctuary for Dragons. Consequences! Scandal. The PC realizes they have told the Times more than they should have, and that tomorrow's copy will be very interesting. Sacharisa refuses to help the Watch with their questions unless they agree to an interview. Edge red herring. Sacharisa wonders if the Dragonfeet was a member of the Draconic Liberation Front, a group that used to meet in the Lamp and Needles. They were misguided and ultimately disbanded several years ago after they learned exactly what a dragon can do to an untrained protester. Well. Lots of bad things. The bucket. Off-duty watchman, an absence of charm and ambience, the smell of stale beer. The unofficial bar of the Watch, not a place for causing trouble. If the officers in the bucket are forced to ply their trade, they will do so with extreme prejudice. If visited during the day, the place is half empty. If visited during the evening, it is half full. Well done. Well done. Either way, Sergeant Angua can be found spending her free day here, reading a book and not wanting to be disturbed. Werewolf in the Watch, she, her, an unparalleled sense of smell, a big dog in the canine community, respected member of the Watch. Sergeant Angua can use her fantastic sense of smell to tell a PC the origin of an item. She's not happy to do this and will need convincing since it's her day off. Do we actually get a picture of Angua? No, I don't think we do. Boo. Clues. Address. If the culprit's name or a sufficiently detailed description is given to Sergeant Angua, she might be able to let them know that the culprit lives over in Mrs. Effen's boarding house. Scent. If an item is given to Sergeant Angua, she can track it to where it came from. This is probably either at Mrs. Effen's boarding house or Stone on Stone. Consequences. Embarrassment. A PC embarrasses themselves in front of all the watchmen in the bucket. This will come up during promotions. Off-duty. Angua is off-duty. What part of off-duty do you not understand? But there's auto-check it. Oh, that contrast there is amazing. I love that. Just the little details that come out, it's so good. If I remember, the bat is for... No, actually, the bat is something to smile at if I remember. Because in the truth, he's experimenting with dark pictures, or pictures that are taken with darkness instead of light. It's really trippy. Misbegot Bridge. Misbegot Bridge, top. Oh, what happened here? John Johnson has hidden his stolen carriage full of dragons under the bridge and plans to blow the whole thing up. Misbegot Bridge, top. Sturdy and lined with houses, rickety scaffolding whimsically arched. If a player is playing as Constable Misbegot in Apprehensive, the gargoyle, a particularly crooked building at the western end of the bridge is their home. Each time the group crosses the bridge, a random event is happening here. Only if the group take the goods lift or scramble down the scaffolding will they discover what is happening under the bridge. Random events! The events may not directly lead to clues or information, but make the city feel alive. Each time the party crosses the bridge, you may want to incorporate the events that took place on previous crossings, as well as adding a new one. Goods lift! The construction site slung under the bridge is supplied by a heavy goods lift. It was sabotaged by John Johnson after he used it to stash the carriage. Fixing the lift requires a mixture of brute force and mechanical cunning and is nigh on impossible to achieve without making a large amount of noise. The Random Table CMOT Dibbler, Ankh-Morpork's premier sausage in a bun salesman, is always on the prowl for anyone willing to eat his products. He spends most of his time on the streets and sees a lot of things, but doesn't have time to chat with people who aren't customers. Missing Dragon. One of the stolen dragons escaped John's carriage and onto the bridge. Roll or choose one of the dragons from page 25. If the dragon is scared, it will flee towards a random location. Ding Dong Watchman. A child throws a rock at one of the members of the party, then sticks out their tongue and runs away. Reporter! A curious reporter, Sachirisa, notices the party and decides to interrogate them, trying to egg a story out of them. If they have not yet been to the Times, she will invite them back for a full interview. If the party has already met her, she simply wants an update on her human interest story. Cheese jousting! A small crowd cheers on a cheese jousting competition. Cheeses are lined up either end of the bridge and rolled at great speed towards each other. The winner is the last cheese standing. Cheese. Grumbling Drunk. A young man called Guido is causing a disturbance to the bees. He grumbles about golems having the same motive as John. Unlike John, his only plan to do something about it is getting rip-roaring drunk and shouting at people in the street. You know, as you do. But this is John Johnson, surveyor with ill motives. I mean, that is laughably generic. Under the bridge. Piles of bricks, the smell of masonry dust, rickety scaffolding, murky twilight. Slung under the bridge is a network of scaffolding that bears building materials, tools, and a carriage with Nobblers and Sons written on the side. At the other side of the vertigo-inducing walkway is John Johnson completing the last stage of his plan. He is currently trying to light a long fuse with a rather uncooperative dragon, Gunter. The fuse leads across the scaffolding toward where the carriage of dragons wobbles dangerously. If John notices the party, he will flee, triggering the finale. Clues! From above, there are no obvious clues as to John Johnson's plan, though scaffolding along the building does show construction work taking place. Consequences. Lost time. With only 8 hours to find the dragons, every wasted minute counts. The party loses too much time getting sidetracked, advancing the time by a narratively exciting margin. This should be tracked fairly loosely, but around 2 hours is a good benchmark for how much time is lost. Foul Ron. A man whose smell introduces him sometimes from across international borders. The beggar mumbles something at the party, and anyone who interacts with him will gain the trait lingering smell. If the party have crossed the bridge a few times, Ron might complain in his hard to understand way about the gentrification project going on under the bridge. Yeah. Coffin Henry, Valor Ron. Ron sideways. No, it's different. That's fine. Finale. If John flees, the laws of narrative climax will allow him to light the fuse before taking off across the scaffolding. The PCs must choose between defusing the carriage or giving chase. Once the crisis has been resolved, it's time to wrap up the adventure. Complications. The carriage the dragons are kept in has been locked with a sturdy chain. Teeter. The carriage rumbles ominously, then begins to slide slowly across the scaffolding. Trick fuse! After the fuse has been put out, it will seem alright for around 30 seconds, after which it will relight. Dragons everywhere. When the door of the carriage is open, the dragons escape into the precarious scaffolding. The carriage itself. The lit fuse leads to a small box of fireworks next to the carriage. The theory being that if the fireworks go off, this will surprise the dragons into combustion. If any loud noises occur near the carriage, it will rumble ominously. You may use any or all of the complications below to add spice into the scene. The example consequences can be used as a result of failure or inaction, or you can come up with your own. Consequences! Crack. The carriage opens, but the loud noise scares the dragons. There are seconds before the whole thing explodes. Carriage full. The bridge will be saved by the cost of innocent dragon lives. Lost time. Dealing with the problem leads to another complication on this table arising. Additional mayhem. You can use the dragon table on page 25 if you want to add even more chaos to the scene. Aww. Look at them faces. You're so adorable. Chase. John Johnson is a surprisingly dexterous man and is willing to put himself at great risk in order to escape. As John flees, you may use any, all, or some of the complications Bevan come up with your own. Or even come up with your own, I'm guessing that's supposed to be. Wrap up. Once the excitement is over and the culprit either caught or at large, it's time to wrap things up. To end the adventure, provide a little roundup of the consequences of their actions and give each player a chance to give a little epilogue for their character. Perhaps the player wants to know what happened to Crippus's cold shop, or made a promise of an interview to Satiriza. Now is a good time to gently explore these loose threads as the game winds to a close. When everyone is happy and the session has naturally ended, you can close this book and have a nice cup of tea. Or hot beverage of your choice. Thank you, I will have a coffee. Complications. Swing. John leaps onto a rope and swings across the scaffolding away from the watch. Safety violation. The scaffolding beneath the PC crumbles away, leaving them dangling precariously off a ledge. Gunter is thrown. John realizes he is holding a very explosive creature and throws it at anyone chasing him. No more coffee for me? Lies. You're not my supervisor. Final stand. John turns on those chasing him and tries to convince them of the validity of his hatred. If interrupted, he will launch himself at a watchman. It's bad for my sleep? I don't have trouble sleeping. Consequences! Rivertop Gambit. A passing boat gives John a chance to leap into its rigging and shimmy down. Fall. The PC falls onto the Ankh below, possibly being seriously hurt if they break the surface. Boom! If Gunter is not calmed down, he will explode. Gunter can be calmed down with gentle rocking or by being fed his nutritional additives. Unsatisfying end? John falls to the Ankh below, perhaps managing to grab a PC on his way down. His body is found 3 days later by a golem dredging the river. Oh, this is a weird way to engineer it, because that's the finale, but they've got the other locations afterwards. Have they done these alphabetically? Kind of? See, I would have the finale at the end, but that's mostly just for formatting. Nobblers and Sons. What happened here? John Johnson broke in last night and then silenced the owner of the shop and stole the carriage. Since then, Crippus Nobbler has held onto a version of life through sheer passion for his work, becoming a zombie. Sierra, child, she/her, forgets to speak like a troll, fascinated by danger, thinks she acts older than she looks. Bustling carriages, busy commerce, the smell of varied meats. The outside of Nobblers and Sons is a neat little shop front with fancy brass lettering. The front door is locked, despite all other businesses being open. Sierra is here, complaining that the coal shop should be open by now. To the back of the shop is a small courtyard with wheel ruts showing that a carriage used to sit here. The back door to the shop has been forced open with a crowbar. Nobblers and Sons, a coppery smell mixed with coal, and clean surfaces, barrels of coal. The interior of the shop is filled with brass buckets of artisan's coal, the kind of perfectly shaped lumps that would look perfect on a Hog's Watch postcard next to a roaring flame. In the upstairs room is Crippus Nobbler, who has been tied and gagged as well as murdered. Murdered! Those that die are usually lucky enough to pass on to the next life, but though there are those with unfinished business, personal enough to cling onto a life after the messy business of death. Crippus Nobbler is a passionate coal sculptor, and that passion has raised him as a zombie. He is confused, but more talkative than one might expect. What's Ritzwin doing there? But it's good to see Rigshu. Crippus Nobler, master of the black arts. He, him, recently deceased, passionate about coal, understandably shaken. Once freed and informed of his own murder, Crippus Nobler will be happy to tell the watch that he knows what he knows, especially if they want to know anything about the black arts. Coal sculpting is a transitory art, and most people are woefully ignorant or underwhelmed by it. When Crippus took over the shop from his father, also Crippus Nobler, why change a winning formula? He decided that the artisanal coal market was ripe for the taking. Surprisingly, it has been rather popular, mostly with young trolls looking for a trendy snack. Hence Sierra up the top. Clues! Drinking buddies. Crippus would go to the Lamp and Needles after delivering coal to the sanctuary, and he remembers seeing John there on more than one occasion. A proper obituary. Crippus wonders if he could get a proper obituary into the Times. The publicity would do his store no end of good. Rant! The intruder went on a rant about golem, ending it with, they can draw the plans, lay the stone on stone, then leave houses empty while the rest of us are thrown out onto the streets they built. Dimmer's tattoo. Crippus saw a tattoo on the man's forearm that read Dimmers Forever. The Dimmers are a football team from Dimwell, so is most likely local. Inky sleeve. John Johnson left his brown jacket behind when he stole Crippus's uniform. The jacket has ink on its sleeve, suggesting the owner spent time behind a desk. But that could lead anywhere. Consequences! Self-pity. Crippus is overwhelmed by his recent death and refuses to answer any more questions. Curiosity. Let's try that again, shall we? Sierra decides to follow the party and will be put in mortal danger during the finale. Oh, love it. Red herring. John Johnson left behind a beer mat from the bucket with the word veterinary written on it. This has no bearing on the case. It was used as part of a game of 20 questions. See, that's great. I like that. Mrs. Ethan's boarding house. What happened here? John Johnson brought a carriage full of dragons here last night, then took them onward to Misbegot Bridge. During the night, one of the dragons escaped and caused a fire. Noontender Way, in Dimwell, uneven cobbles, the smell of smoke, gawping crowds. The first thing anyone would notice about this street is a crowd of people that have gathered to watch Mrs. Ethan's boarding house. A column of smoke is erupting from the third floor of the ramshackle building, and a line of golems are piling up a small pile of burning possessions in the street. Burning possessions! A golem's way of putting out a fire is to simply remove the burning items from the offending building, place them in the street, then stamp the flames out. The possessions in this case consist mostly of John's closed books and smoldering furniture. A red-faced Mrs. Ethan is looking for someone to blame, and I don't blame her. Mrs. Ethan, hospitality, she, her, speaks her mind no matter what. Glare that could cut glass, hands on hips. Mrs. Ethan wants to know exactly what the watch plans on doing to fix this problem. She assumes that the fire was started by dwarfs. She thinks that the city used to be safer before folks started burrowing under everything and causing trouble. If she learns of the dragons causing the fire, she will remark that something should be done. Mrs. Ethan's boarding house, room 24B. Black and cloying smoke, the stench of char, scraps of paper. The remains of John's room is a sorry sight, and the golems evacuating the fire will not stop until every item has been removed. Pay slip. A surviving scrap of paper details John's pay from his employer, stone on stone. Singed diary. John's journal does not directly describe his plans, but is filled with rants decrying the use of golems. Drawing plans. A tube designed for holding large drawings, it holds architectural plans for a bridge of some kind. Studying the map may reveal it is Misbegot Bridge. Cause of the fire. A rather guilty-looking dragon is hiding in a wardrobe. A tag on a collar says, "My name is Smokey. If found, please return to the Sunshine Sanctuary for sick dragons. Please do not feed me under any circumstances." It's quite a large tag. Smokey escaped her captor and started this fire out of nervousness before finding her hiding place. If calmed down, she can lead the PCs to Misbegot Bridge. Boom! A nearby explosion shakes the ground as a wall of the boarding house collapses. A dragon has burrowed below the wall and nervously exploded. Consequences! The raging flames singe clothing and hair. A PC gains the trait Nasty Burns. Ire. Mrs. Ethan blames the watch for failing to protect her business and demands compensation. If she is not mollified, a rumor will spread that the watch burned down the boarding house. Collapse. The old building collapses, covering the area in dust and trapping a PC beneath the rubble. Aww. That's an adorable picture, though. Stone on stone. What happened here? John Johnson worked here until recently. As part of his work, he was sent across to survey Misbegot Bridge. It was here that he first hatched his plans. Waxwick Terrace, Dimwell. Red brick buildings, neat brass plaques, air of respectability marred by the smell of the ank. The businesses along this lane are the kind that do not require much advertising. They are the kinds of businesses that connect the rich and mighty with people that actually do work. Among these businesses is Stone on Stone, identical to its neighbors in all ways except a polite little plaque marking it out. Stone on stone interior, writing desks, the faint scritching of quills, the smell of quiet opulence. The architect's offices of Erica Loft are staffed by industrious draftsmen, drafts dwarves, and even a draft golem plots. The business is on the ropes since the Alchemist Guild. Repeat business is hard to come by in construction, so the Alchemist Guild is seen as something of a golden goose. Change suppliers. They currently have their hands full with the renovation of Misbegot Bridge and can't afford the contract to fail. Miss Erica Loft. Architect facilitator, she, her. Sharp-faced and sharp-witted. Jet black suit and hair. Points at you when it's your turn to talk. Yeah, okay. I mean, I can work that. Plots. Draft golem. It's. Only communicates through drawing. 8 foot tall and made of reddish clay. No sense of metaphor. A free golem hired out by the Golem Trust. Plots is introspective and very literal. As a golem, it has no sense of art, but if asked to draw something, it can do so with complete and utter realism. Unlike an imp, which draws what it can see now, Plots draws exactly what will be there when the job is finished. It has caused problems before by drawing mistakes the builders will make during construction, and including upcoming graffiti daubed onto the walls. Oh, that's amazing! Clues. John's address. Miss Loft knows the addresses of all of her employees. John lives at Mrs. Effen's boarding house over in Noontender Way, Dimwell. An important client. Stone on Stone has recently secured a lucrative contract with the city to renovate Misbegot Bridge. The structural supports are in need of bolstering. Frustration. One of Miss Loft's employees has not returned their theodolite after they were fired. John Johnson. A surprising drawing. Plots' plans of the Misbegot Bridge renovations are instead drawings of a large pile of rubble spanning the Ankh. Plots was asked to draw the plans for the bridge after all, and its pen cannot lie. Consequences. Miss Loft will be speaking to her solicitor, and her solicitor is a very serious sort. New watch house. Somehow, a PC realizes that they have promised a building contract to Miss Loft. Golem confusion. Trying to comprehend Plots' drawing gives a PC the trait unsure about this whole reality business. But if the golem knows the truth of everything that is drawn, then it could draw my life, and I wouldn't be able to deny it. Yeah, no, we get it. Yeah. And there's Plots. I have always loved this picture. Quite an amazing rendition of American Gothic from Reaper Man. Pre-generated characters. All right. Detective Bartholomew Hammerhand. The Watch. Background, a zombie who lived and died on these streets. Niche, loose siege catapult. The lore is more of a guideline, really. PCs, pre-generated ones, yeah. Core, better it happened to me than you. Quirks, remembers the good bad old days, always hits what he should be aiming at. Detective Bartholomew Hammerhand was the best the Day Watch had to offer. Back in the bad old days when the Night Watch was a pointless irrelevance commanded by a drunk. You didn't have to worry about regulations or due process, you just had to know how to point a crossbow and follow your gut. Those were the days before that drunk turned out to have a bunch of ideas about due process and not shooting people. Hammerhand has adapted to some extent to the times, but there's nothing like getting an arrow in the chest 3 days from retirement to harden your heart and rotting butt. Hammerhand didn't have the softest heart to begin with. Frankly, he's too dead for this stuff. That's... yeah, right. I'm getting too old for this. Constable Igorina. Organization, The Watch, an Igorina fresh from Uberwald. Niche, applied forensics. Thray it, don't thay it. Core, a stitch in time, saves 9. Quirks, happy to call a head wound. 2 left feet, but the heart of a lion. The Igors of Uberwald are a traditional people. They take great pride in their heritage, in serving the greatest vampire nobility and mad scientists across the disc. When Igorina came to Ankh-Morpork, she didn't find such illustrious employers. Instead, she found a position in the Watch who were happy to overlook the lisp. Her talents as a surgeon were quickly recognized, but more useful was her determination to prevent the need for an Igor's services. Any Igor can stitch someone back together, but few can prevent their patient from getting hurt in the first place. In fact, some of them see that as rather spoiling the fun. Scene of crime evidence. Oh, I do like that though. That is I'm loving the art. And if this is an example of the art they're going to have in the core book, I'm super looking forward to it. Constable Cliff. We saw him earlier. The Watch background, a troll raised by loving human parents. His niche is public relations and the face of the group. Core, people aren't things. Quirks, a winning smile and chiseled features. Simple, but not stupid. As a troll, Constable Cliff has heard all the jokes. People think trolls are stupid, violent, and cruel. The fact that it is usually stupid, violent, and cruel people that think this is little consolation. Cliff doesn't mind though, he approaches every person with a diamond-toothed smile and a determination to meet everyone halfway. His efforts have made him the face of the Watch to many of Ankh-Morpork's residents who have heard of him, which is some of them. I'm loving the humor. Constable Surly Underhand, The Watch, a dwarf born and raised in the shades. Niche, crime scene iconographer. Curious enough to make cats nervous. Core, do everything with a smile. Quirks, blends into the background, virulently infectious personality. Surly is a traditional dwarf with an eye for iconography and detail. The clink of chainmail and the odd sh of Surly's iconographer are a common sound at any crime scene. And he only gets in trouble when he mixes in personal pictures with evidence. The trouble is, Surly argues that everything is connected. More than once a crime has been solved because Surly fought to point his iconographer at a random stranger, plate of food, or passing butterfly just at the right moment. The butterfly was charged with 3 counts of environmental terrorism. Constable Theodora Milanu, born Teddy Mills. Organization, The Watch. Background, Beggars Guild dropout. Niche, undercover watchman. Can do all the funny voices. Core, everyone's guilty of something. Quirks, innocent face and guilty fingers. Friends with Janice the Rat. Oh, nice. Teddy Mills was born to a proud line of beggars. She learned to limp before she could walk and was a practically gifted mumbler. It came as a shock then when she decided to become a member of the Watch. Her parents are still disappointed that she works for a living, letting her know with aggravating frequency that if she ever loses her job, there's always a place for her at the Beggars Guild. Her pet Janice is an excellent informant, although he occasionally has to dodge hungry dwarf watchmen who haven't gotten the memo. Oh, that's so cool though. And the little rat has... Aw. Constable Misbegot and Apprehensive. The Watch, Gargoyle. Designated Noticer. Looks the splitting image of a pixie-faced smut. Doing nothing isn't the same as not doing anything. Quirks, too shy to move if they are being looked at. Beloved by animals despite their best efforts. Misbegot and Apprehensive lives on Misbegot Bridge, and usually spends their days watching the river rank for illegal activity. Technically, the river breaks several environmental laws and at least one public nuisance ordinance just by existing, but the Watch hasn't been able to find a bucket big enough to make an arrest with. Give Carrot enough time, I'm sure he'll get it done. Gargoyles make excellent members of the Watch. They're patient, perceptive, and willing to be paid in pigeons. Since even criminals prefer to steer clear of the turgid rivers, it tends to be a dull job. Misbegotten Apprehensive moves like a poor stop-motion animation, which scares most people who aren't dragons. Dragons are irresistibly drawn to them, to their internal contrastation. Well, that's easy then. And here's our reference sheet. All fits on one page, that's amazing, okay. And there's our one-page reference. Well, that's the Discworld Quickstart. Finished about when I planned to finish. I've had something of a long day, so I'm quite happy to be finishing a little bit earlier than usual. But let's scroll back up to the top. Final thoughts, questions? If anyone has any. For the most part, I feel like the system and the design of the game matches the kind of feel and vibe of the books, if I'm being honest. I know I have a tendency to being known for Pathfinder 2nd Edition, which does rotate a fair bit around combat, but I do like a narrative system like this. And I like one has really just abandoned the numbers. This is not what I was expecting from Ophidius. I'll be the first one to say that. I've been reading the Fallout core book, and a lot of that has a lot of stuff dealing with, you know, add number to this, add number to that, these numbers do this. Whereas this is very much a case of very simple system, very simple to kind of put across. You enjoy Pathfinder? Me too. Oh my god, there's 2 people who enjoy Pathfinder? I know there's an engine for this on Foundry, but considering the way the mechanics go, I kind of think like Foundry might be a little bit overpowered for what you would need for this. You could definitely use a VTT like Albert Rodeo to run this, because for the most part all you need is like splash screens and stuff like that, which I kind of hoped that they had more of, but that's fine, we can work around that. Maybe even alchemy, if Ophidius has kind of released Fallout 2 alchemy, then it's probably they'll be doing the same for Discworld. I'll have a look at that later, because I am interested in alchemy. It's just a little bit, it doesn't quite have enough to do Pathfinder. Otherwise, I like it. It's definitely a system I would run. It is a system I will probably run at some point when I get the time, which seems to be a very familiar refrain for me at the moment. But because it kind of sets up the whole thing, particularly at the start where it says this is a short run system. Like, the design of this system is only for a couple of sessions of play in which you have a adventure set out for the players and they get it done. I would probably set it up either for, like, the adventure they have in the back of the book here has it set up for a one shot. So I'll look into that a little bit more. But I would set it up like a procedural where you have like adventure of the week or mystery of the week, and all of the mysteries lead to one grand scheme at the end of everything, or all lead to the big finale at the end of the season. That's probably how I would run it. But considering the construction, if a mystery can be solved in like one night or one session, then, or two sessions, depending. I don't know. I'm going to be thinking on a couple of things, because I've got a couple of ideas for adventures, but the one adventure I'm currently working on is definitely a one-shot adventure. Well, not a one-shot, but a one adventure. But yeah, keep an eye out for that, because I might do it to coincide with the release of the core book, depending on how things go. Otherwise, this has been the quick start guide for Terry Pratchett's Discworld, Adventures in Ankh-Morpork. I'm hoping that if this book does well, or as well as I hope it has done, because I'm not sure how the Kickstarter ended out, I'm hoping this will lead to expansions, like going over different areas of the Discworld, just talking about other things regarding the world, covering other areas, doing epic adventures, traveling adventures, that kind of thing. Because although the adventure presented at the back of this book is very much a whodunit and a mystery like that, there's nothing really stopping you from making it a little bit more extensive than that. It's something that I think I will need to experiment with, but examples always help with those kind of things. That said, we're going to be raiding into the Dwarf Down Under. Just checking. Yep, no, we'll raid into the Dwarf Down Under. He's currently playing Orcs Must Die Death Trap. I believe he's finished Zelda already, which is a little bit disappointing. I kind of wanted to see what the final fight was. That's fine though, I'll just watch the VOD later. But all that said, the VOD for this will be up within about 48 hours. I'll be putting it up on my YouTube, which you can check out here. Otherwise, be sure to check me out on all the socials. That one, where I kind of update things as much as possible. I know I didn't do a stream schedule this week. I do apologize. Just with the way things have been at the start of the week, yeah, it's been a lot. Tomorrow night, it is looking like we're going to be doing Pokemon Infinite Fusion. I was considering doing Monster Hunter Wilds, but A, can't afford it, and B, by the looks of things, the PS5 version won't be out until midnight, I think. So we'll see how that goes, and we'll take it an inch at a time. But I do currently have it up on the throne. Can't really afford it at the moment, so it's not really been a priority for me, unfortunately. Otherwise, I hope you have a good day, a good night, a good week, no matter where you are in the world. And remember, as always, we are the storytellers. Good night, everyone.